Okay. How are we doing? Hopefully people can hear what I'm saying. I don't see some volume. Okay. Check, kitty, check, check. Checking my volume. Doesn't seem very good. Okay. Okay. Just me here, so I'm going to pause the recording and then we'll see if I can round up some people. All right. So I had nothing in particular. I was going to go over, since there's only you, Winnie, right now, I was going to go over what other, everyone was panicking about the drop and lowest things. I'm more than happy to go over some of it, but I wanted to see what we could do about that. So let me think, what kind of activity could I do? Oh, the number of characters. Let's do that. So we're going to do an array with the number of characters that are not, I'm going to remove the letter A from an array of characters, just like dropping the n lowest marks. And then I'm going to do it in a weird way. Yeah, you can certainly unmute.
Hi.
I like when people unmute.
Sorry, hello?
So do you have a question in particular?
Yes. I had a question. It was the same thing about
I'm
drop.
not here. Oh, I'm mute. My speaker's off. Hold on a second.
Oh, okay.
Right now.
Okay, hi. So I had a question about the same thing everyone was asking, sort of. It was about the drop and lowest.
Mhm.
Personally, for me, it was because I couldn't call the min index function into the drop and lowest function for some reason. I was having trouble calling it. And when I called it in and when I checked if it set to ignore value, it didn't work. So I'm not sure why it didn't work
Mm.
because we were asked to call the min index function and then set it to ignore value. But when I did it, it didn't work. I used the assert function to check, but it didn't work.
You asserted that the index it was returning was 0 or greater, right?
I asserted to see if the min index was set to ignore value.
It's not going to automatically be set to ignore value.
I put it in the function to set it to ignore value, so I'm not sure.
But the minimum, so if you call min index with one of these things to be ignore value,
Yes.
it's not going to return that index after you, if so, you've set to ignore value, which is 200, right? It's a big number.
Yes.
If you go to find the min index again, it's certainly not going to land in that place again. Every time you call min index, it's never going to land on these ignore value thing because it's too big of a number. It's a big number. What you want it to do is find the minimum index in a series of numbers. So if I've removed let's say you get a 0 in your assignment. I think that people are thinking about it from a code standpoint. I want people to think about, like, get a piece of paper. How would you do it?
Yes.
So if I have a bunch of numbers here, let's make a file or something like that here.
Okay.
So let's say ignore char, and I think it was S8. We're going to do something very similar, I think, for our example. So here's what I'm thinking. If I have a bunch of numbers, let's say here are our grades. You got a 40 because I'm being a jerk. 20, 90, 80, 72, 33, another jerk number, 100 and 100. Okay. If I'm trying to remove the lowest two of those grades, you as a person, what would you do?
I would use the given min index function.
No, don't worry about the code. How would you, as a person, if I said remove the two lowest grades here, what are the two lowest grades?
20 and 33
How do you know that?
by looking at it.
But you don't look at it all at once, do you?
You look at one by one.
right? And you found the first minimum value, but you
Yes.
don't know if it's the 20 or the 33, right? Or let's put another number in here and a 0 at the end, just to be a jerk. So now the values are different, but I have to scan all the way to the end, finding my minimum index, right? My minimum value.
Yes.
And then I want to get rid of that one. And then if I want to get the second lowest value, it's not that 0 anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get rid of another value. So I need to scan all over again, finding the minimum value again. And if
Yeah.
I need to remove a third number, I scan all over again, find the minimum value. Like you do this in your head. It's thinking about how you walk through the problem yourself.
Uh-huh.
That tells you what the code has to do. I have to go like 40. Is that the minimum? So far, 40 is the minimum. 20. Oh, that's lower. I'm going to keep the 20. Okay. 90. No, I'm not removing it. So it's still 20. 80. No, it's still 20. 72. No, it's still 20. 33. No, it's still 20. 100. No. 100. No. 0. Oh, whoops. Get rid of my 20. The 0 of my lowest value. When I remove it, let's make it to 200 now. What happens? Then I'm going to do the same thing again. 40 is my lowest. Now it's 20, and it stays 20 for the entire time. And now I'm going to remove this one, make it a huge number. Now
Mhm.
find the minimum. I go 40, 40 is the smallest, 40 is still the smallest, 40, 40, 40. Oh, 33 smaller. Okay,
Yeah.
I get to the very end. 33 is still my smallest. Okay, gonna wipe out my 33. Okay, and I do this until I run out of numbers I'm supposed to throw out. So if I'm supposed to throw out 3 numbers, I did it 3 times, done.
Okay.
That's the
Um,
algorithm. But
that's
everyone wants to throw in code. I'm like, no, get paper.
I mean, that's quick sort of what I did, and that's when I mentioned that I checked if it was changed, right?
Oh, you
If
can check if it's changed. It's just if I say minimum index now, it's definitely not going to be one of these 200s.
yes.
Right. Okay. So when I get the minimum index, I then just stomp on a 200 in that position to make sure I ignore it
Okay.
and then move
I
on to the
think I
next.
know where I made a mistake then. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna check then.
That's why you do little chunks at a time and you test the code each chunk at a time. Because if you have a bug in your very first part
Mm-hmm.
and you rely on that and there's a bug there, by the way, I found a bug in my code to the point that what was it? The number of ignored or number of valid numbers or whatever the heck that the function was called, right? I have a function called number of valid numbers. And a student was asking about that, like, why do I need that? And I went, well, you need it because you want to know how many valid numbers you have in that list.
Yeah.
Except here's the counterpoint to that. If I want to know the number of valid numbers and someone gives me this list, 0. If I have to keep the top 10 grades and there's only 4, I don't the number of valid numbers would return 4, but my average is not based off of 4 numbers. It's based off of 10 numbers, the 10 numbers I'm keeping. So yeah, there it's the number of valid values is normally used as a safety check. So actually it was Haley that made that point. So I was very appreciative of that, right? If I have way too many numbers in this list, if I have way too few numbers in this list, somebody doesn't submit anything. I was working under the assumption that when you do your grade calculations for everybody, every single person will have 11 grades for 11 assignments. Some of them will be 0 because some people didn't pass in an assignment, and we will drop that grade. But on the off chance that there's only 8 numbers and we're keeping the top 9 grades, the numbers are going to be wrong. I wanted to sum them up and divide by 9, not sum them up and divide by 8. Bug in my own code. Well, bug. I'm not. I think I was doing a double test. I was doing a test on this, but bugs happen. They are sort of par for the course. Everyone has them. It's not a sign of weakness. The key is you know you're going to make them, so you do a little tiny bit of code at a time to make sure that it works, because you will guarantee to have nasty bugs if you try and do everything at once. That makes sense? Can I go through, do you want me to go through another example? Sorry, Winnie, you were going to say something.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you. I'm gonna try to use your feedback and write it down on paper and do it again and see what happens from there.
Yeah, I mean, if you take those numbers and you do it yourself as a human, what
Mm.
would you do? It's going to look very similar to what and if you do it a different way, sure, do it the other way. To a
Okay.
certain, I'm asking you to do these other functions, but you know, the challenge was in the past, if I just gave you drop the n lowest grades, what people do is they find the lowest number. Okay, you can find that one easily enough. And then afterwards, how do you find the next lowest number? Right? You can't remove the other option would be to take the lowest number, move it to the end, and then pretend my array is shorter. That's another approach. But you cannot you cannot just like remove a number from this list. And I can't, what value could I possibly set in this set of grades? What value could I possibly put in there to make sure that it's not a valid? If I put 0 in there, it could be that you forgot to do the assignment and it should still count.
Wait, are you asking me?
No, no, I'm just talking. I'm
Oh,
yammering. Sorry.
okay. I was like, oh,
It's when you think through the problem a lot, there's an array doesn't, you cannot shrink your array like you can in some other places. It's just a chunk of memory and it's yours. And whether you use it all or not, it's different. So you can pretend it's shorter than it is, which is one option, or you can put numbers that you guaranteed are not going to be. Um, actually, here's my original approach to doing this problem. I take the smallest number that I have, set that to 0. And now when I look for the smallest number, what do I get? I get the 0 again. And when I check again, I get the 0 again. I keep on getting the same number over and over again because the number I have there is the smallest number of my array. And I'm going to keep on finding that same smallest number. So the easier thing to do is make it a really big number instead, and then say, I'm going to ignore that later. Anyways, let's do, I don't know what you guys are in the mood to do. I'm more than happy. I'm going to change my approach depending on what you guys want to see. I was going to do this. Um, I called my thing ignore char because I want to do like an array of characters because it's going to be different than the assignment. I'm going to remove the letter A from this array of characters because uh, because it's going to look very similar to finding the minimum index, by the way. And then after I remove the letter A everywhere, then I'm going to count the number of characters that are not, valid characters in there, alphabetic characters, let's say. Okay, this is my plan. The reason I'm making this plan is just because it's going to look, act, and smell exactly like what the assignment is, except for it's going to be characters instead. They should be analogous to one to the other. That's the reason I'm doing this. Okay, so so plan. I want to say what I'm doing, not like I is equal to I plus 5. I'm saying the general approach that I'm taking in my comments. So the plan, remove the char A from an array of characters that number of oh something like that. I'm just making up something that's going to look like what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to make an array. So here we go. MSG for message, not monosodium glutamate. We're just lazy. We shorten up everything. Okay, let's make this array. What do I want to have in it? A, B, C, I could write my array a different way, but I want to make it look like a numeric array, in case you're wondering. A, Q, why not? And A, another A, and E. And then I'm going to put this weird thing at the end, which I talk about at the end of this assignment. This is our format for saying it's the end of a string of text. We'll see this in a lot more detail later. You sort of need to have it in there simply because you use it to find out when you stop your array. So I keep going until I get to, and what's wrong with this right here? Because it's not a message. It's not an array. Okay. There we go. But I know I hit the end of my string when I hit this thing here. It's a special character at the end to say like, whoa, we're at the end. It's actually exactly equal to the number 0. Just is, or null. So if you get a 0 at the end, but I like putting that special symbol. Everyone puts that special symbol in there to say, no, it's not an accidental 0. I'm intent. It's not the number. It's not the character 0. I can put a character 0 in here as well. Let's put that in there. It's a character. If I want to put the character 0 in a string of text, I would need to be able to do that too. This is something special. This is, I'm at the end of my string. Don't do it. If I don't put that in there and I do a printf statement, bad things are it's going to look terrible. Okay, I'm going to do this, printf, my message is, and I'm going to put a string in there. You line. Okay, a message. All right. And I'm going to need to include something at the top here. Standard IO, right? Okay, let's see if that's going to work for us. Go fix that problem. Okay, now that we've done all this, I didn't do anything at all yet so far. I'm just sort of thinking through my problem. Okay, I want to check to see. Here's my message, including a 0 at the end. That's this. I got to move this over. That's this 0 right here, not the other one, not the one at the end. That tells me what the end of my string is. So it's A, B, C, A, A, Q, A, E, 0. This thing here. Okay. Now I want to remove, I'm going to do some fancy pants stuff. I'm going to make a constant char to move. I don't want to hard code things if I don't have to. Constant char. Oh, I should make it all caps as well. And then I want this thing to be char to ignore. It's all capitals, not to yell, but just to say like, yeah, just ignore this thing. So let's make a dash in here. Why not? Okay. Everywhere I have, what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the number of characters that are not the one that I'm going to ignore here. And the number of non-char to ignore characters that remain. Okay. So everything that's not a char to ignore character, I'm going to count. Okay. So how do I want to do this? I need to be able to find, I'm going to take it the way that we're doing the assignment, not the fastest way of doing it. So let's do it the way we're going to do the assignment. I'm going to make an array. I'm going to make a function that walks down my array and finds the first instance of A, or the character I'm trying to remove, the position of that character, and returns it. Why not? Okay. So this is going to find the character that I'm trying to remove. I'm going to pass in called text just to have a different name for it. And I'm going to say, I think they don't need that right now, but I'm going to put it in there anyways. So here's the text I'm going to be passing it. It's this thing here. I'm going to find out the size. I'm going to figure out what the size of this array is right here. And I'm going to walk down this array. And every time the first time I find an A, I'm going to return that position. Okay, so I'm going to use a for loop. And I'm not even going to think about my for loop. I'm going to, because part of the practice that we're trying to get you is just there are some things that are memory based, but all right, that can go on your cheat sheet. By the way, let's do an assert array size is greater than 0. Don't allow people to have an empty array, at least in this case. Okay, I'm going to go character by character down my array. If a text at position I, that's my index. I is just consistent that we always use this. Every single step as I walk down my array, if that is equal to char to remove the thing I'm looking for, the A in this case, if it's equal to that, I'm going to return I, the index where I'm looking. So if I call this thing, if I call this function 20 times on this array, a message, I should get the same value each and every time. It always stops at position 0. If I remove the A and call it again, it'll find this position 0, 1, 2, 3. If I remove the A, that A, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll return 4. Then it'll be turn 6, and then it will return. I need something to say that it's at the end of my array, or it's not in there. I don't know if you guys can help me on this one. Is my find min index, is it returning an int or an unsigned int? If it's returning an int, I'd like to keep doing that. The reason I want to do that is because it depends on what I'm going to return here. I need something that's not a valid position to guarantee when I say find the index of this character I'm trying to remove. If that character is not in there, I need to say like, nope, don't even look any further. It's not in there. So I'm going to change this one little bit. I'm going to return this. And then if it doesn't find anything, by convention, I can do this. It's definitely not a valid position, right? There's no position -1. Returns an int. Thank you. Thank you, Kaylee. We'll return -1. Like crap hit the fan. Oh God, return -1. It's definitely not a valid position. Okay. Hopefully that's making some sense. Let's test our code. I don't want to just rely on this. So find to remove index. Here's the thing that's going to go into it. A message. So that array, I know where it's located. I'm just going to pass that location, that address of it, like your house, your street address. I'm going to pass that address to my function. And how many characters do I have in here? One. Let's count it from one, at least in this case. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 characters. Why? Because I want to stop. The length is 9. It goes from 0 to 8. Okay. Okay. Hopefully that makes some sense. Let's put that in an array here. So int let's just make it easier for ourselves and maybe call it twice. Yeah. Oh, I need to return something to me. Okay. I have the message here. I get to this position here, I'm going to call this function. So let's walk into my function. That's what this button up here does. It says step into the function. So I can step into the function. Zoop, I jump up here, and here's my message. Here's a text. The same as it was. The thing coming in here is the same thing as I have here. And the array size matches this 9. 9 goes to this array size here should be 9 as well. Okay, I'm going to walk down my array. Okay, I'm going to start from 0. I'm going to go up to, but not including 9. So 0 to 8, all the characters in my array. I'm going to check to see if the first character, if the character at position 0 is equal to A. Is it? It should be. Is it? Okay, yes, it is. I'm going to return 0 here. And if I called it again, what's going to happen? It should return 0 again. So a pos is equal to 0 right now. If I call this function one more time, I'll take one step over. Still 0. I'm going to keep on finding that same position. Okay, I need some way. So this is very similar to us finding the minimum index. That's the find minimum index function, essentially. It's finding the minimum position. Now what I want to do is I want to remove, maybe we could just remove the first n a's, just to make it even more similar to the assignment. Okay. So I'm going to have a function here. I could also use, I should probably be using stubbies here. So let's move these down. I'm just moving it around just to organize my code in a nicer way. Notice I need to have something to say. I will define a function called find to remove index. So stubby. Let's okay. I'm going to have remove first n. I don't want to say call them A's because they're first n char remove n char to remove. Terrible name. I fully admit it is. I'm removing n instances of the character to remove. The character to remove is this A, but it could be C, it could be E, it could be W. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm just trying to remove that however many times. If there's not enough of those characters, I'm only going to remove the characters that I have. That's part of the reason why I want to return a number. I want to say how long this thing is afterwards. Okay. So what I need to do is I'm going to have a character to remove, an array size. I'm going to just keep on using that thing. And I'm going to also have a character. I'm going to use this character to remove it. So I'm going to keep on calling this. I need the number of times that I'm going to remove it. In to remove. Down here. Okay. So what am I doing here? I'm just going to walk down, find a character. When I find the character, make sure it's not -1, because that would mean that there's no character available. If it's not equal to -1, I'm going to stomp on that character, essentially remove the A and put in this, char to ignore thing, which means I'm not going to have an A there, which means I can do it all over again and stomp on the next character and then stomp on the next character. Okay. What I would expect here is if the number to remove is equal to 1, it's the same as removing it one time, right? Removing the very first A. If I have it 2, I remove the first 2 A's, then the first 3 A's if the number was 3, 4, 5. If I don't have enough A's, I'm going to stop before I reach to that number that I'm trying to remove. And this is, maybe this value here should be the number of, I'm going to say the number of characters that I have left over, like the number of non-zero characters I have left over. Non-char to remove characters I have left over. going to be very, hopefully you're seeing the comparison between the other one, between the drop minimum grades, right? What I'm doing for dropping minimum grades, I'm finding the smallest number, removing that smallest number, making it something big so I definitely don't find it again, calling the minimum index again. When I find the minimum index, remove it, and just keep doing that until I've removed n of my elements. In this case, I'm removing n of my a values. Okay, I'm gonna have to call this function, I'm gonna be calling find to remove in a second. Okay, how many am I going to do? I'm going to keep on repeating this thing until number to remove is equal to 0, or I can't find that index anymore. I'm going to try a while loop just to show you a while loop. I could use a for loop. In fact, I would normally use a for loop, but okay. So what do I want to do here? While do I want to use min index found? I'm going to bail on that one in that case, but okay. Okay, what am I doing here? I'm going to find the minimum index here. Find to remove index. That's the text I'm looking through. The array size is still the array size. That array size isn't going to change at all. And I'm going to keep around int. That's this thing here. The index I'm trying to find to remove. So right now it's going to be 0. When I stomp on that value, I'm going to call this function over and over and over again. Okay, I want to check to see if to remove index, if that thing is less than 0, not a valid index, then I'm going to return. Oh, I need to figure out how long this string is. Oh, I'll make another function in here. Something for myself to remember. I'm going to make a function later on. It's just going to take that string, find out how many characters there are in it, how many non-removed characters there are in it. I'm also going to do that later on. That's why I'm going to put it in a function. It's also hard to get my head around things. To remove index, capital I. Okay. If it is a valid value, then what can I do? I want to have a text at position to remove index. So at that position, and that is going to be equal to, and whatever the heck, char to ignore that thing. Just stomp on the value. If I call the function again, stomp on the next value. I'm going to keep on just finding the character, stomping on the value. Num to remove minus. Since this is always a positive integer, so unsigned integer, and since it stops when this thing is equal to 0, it's just going to count down until I get to the number to remove is equal to 0, and then I'm going to stop. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, please stop me if this seems like gibberish. I wanted to say this earlier. Sorry, I didn't remember to say it right away. Some of you are going to have what you want to claim to be a stupid question. I still say the word. I'm sure it's a stupid question, and most of the time it's not. Well, in my case, sometimes it is. But I will almost guarantee if you have a stupid question, other people have it too. Why is there gnome to remove? Where are you seeing that? That's perfect. Or no, or that was spelling mistake on your part. Oh, number to remove minus minus. Okay, what is that doing? That's a great question. So if the number going in that I'm trying to remove, let's say I'm trying to remove 3 A's. I wanted it similar to the homework. Like I'm dropping the n lowest grades. I wanted something similar. So if I say I'm removing 3 of these A characters, if I have 4 characters, I'm only removing 3 of them. If I have 2 of them, I remove 2 of them and I stop early. But if I say I'm removing the 3, the first 3 A characters, I need to keep track of how many I've removed. So I take this number to remove. When I find one I'm going to remove, I decrease it. That's what num is equal to num minus minus is. So let's do this. Num is equal to num to remove minus 1. The same thing. But it's every time I find one and remove it, I'm going to decrease my count until I get to 0. And when I get to 0, I'm like, hey, I've done 3, or I've done 2, or I've done 17, whatever the number is. That making sense? Kind of. Can I clarify it more? Essentially, I need to keep track of how many I've removed. That's me keeping track of how many I've removed. I could have a number that counts up to check to see if it's equal to num to remove. And then when it gets to that, stop. That would be wonderful. That's another way of doing it. Great. It's okay if things are confusing. I'm throwing a lot at you guys. I just need some way of counting the number of times I've removed something. This function is meant to look like, it's a stupid function. It's meant to look like this drop n lowest grades. It's supposed to look, act, smell exactly like the function you have to do for the homework, but not be giving away the answer. All that I'm doing is I have a string of characters, like this thing right here. I'm going through it, and let me show you what the function would actually look like. So I'm not going to call this function anymore. Let's comment that thing out. I was testing my code. I want to call remove and char. Terrible name. I still apologize, but I still honestly can't think of a better name for it right now. A message, and I have the number to remove. It's 9. The array size is 9, and the number I'm going to remove 3 of them. Why not? We'll run it again later to see what it does afterwards. And I'm also going to do this afterwards. There we go. I'm going to print out the message. My new message is this. So I have my message, this A, B, C, A, A, Q, A, E, 0. I call remove n number of characters removed. I'm going to remove 3 A's. There are actually 4 A's in here. So the first 3, this one, and this one. So in this chunk here, those 3 A's, those will be removed and replaced with another character. The only character left will be this, the only A left will be this character here. Why do I want to do this? Because I'm dropping, it's the same, trying to make it look like drop n lowest grades. So I find 3 of my lowest grades, remove those 3 lowest grades, and now I can just sum up my total. In this case, I'm going to find out how many characters I have left after I've removed those 3 A's. They're still characters, but I'm going to pretend they're ignorable characters or something. I just want something that looks similar to the assignment. So in case you're wondering why I would use this, I would never use this function in a million years. Okay, so I have a to-do here for how to get the number of characters. So I should actually probably put in a, not character, is it character? because, okay. Okay, so if I found the thing I'm looking for, stomp on the value. I'm going to do that. And so if I call this function again, find to remove index again, what's going to happen? I'm not going to get the first, I'm not going to get position 0. I'm going to get like position 2. Then I call it again, I might get position 4. I won't just get the same index each time because I've removed the A. Okay, each and every time. And I'm keeping track of how many I've removed. Okay, when I get to the end of it, I want to, here's my to do again. I need to do that to do in a second. So each time I go through this thing, I'm removing a character. Well, let's see what this thing does. See if it works at all. I'm doing a little bit at a time, checking my code. So what I would expect now is if I call this function, I'm going to change what I have here. I'm going to look at this warning here. Online, what line is it? I should have a warning message in here somewhere. Array size is an integer, so is an unsigned integer. No, that'll do. Okay. Hopefully just get, it's just a warning. It's not really stopping me, but let's see what this thing does. Why not? Breakpoint here. I'm going to remove my breakpoint. Let's see what this thing, my new message. So this is my original message. My new message is the first A gets removed. The second A gets removed. The third A gets removed. This A does not get removed because I've said I'm only removing 3 of them. And then I stop. All right. And I'm going to finish up this thing. Let's try it one more time. Let's try it with 1. Let's make sure it works. Okay. What other things might I want to do? I might want to return, let's remove 20 of these things. So I've only removed the very first character. Everything else stays the same. Great. Let's try my function yet again. But this time let's remove like a ridiculous number here, right? Let's remove 10 of them. Let's see what happens. I've removed every single A in there. There are no more A's. I'm not done yet because I wanted to count the number of characters that are not dashes in this string of text, right? All these characters. But that's the next step. I'm doing one little bit at a time. I plan my approach. I have the sort of the foundation, how I want to approach the problem. Then I take it one little step at a time. If I need to find out the sum of all the numbers, what do I do? If I want to find the minimum index, what do I do? If I want to get the average of it, how do I calculate the average? Well, I sum up all my numbers that I'm counting at least. So all the non-200s in the assignment, I sum up all those numbers and then I divide by the number of grades I'm keeping. So in case it might be 8 grades I'm keeping. It might be all the grades I'm keeping. The calculating the number of valid grades is meant to be allowing you to check to make sure that if you're keeping 8 grades, the number of valid grades afterwards should be 8 as well. Because if it's not 8 as well, you got something wrong in your code and oh my God, you got to find that out and you fix the problem right away. So just as a test, the number of grades that I'm keeping should be equal to the number of the number of valid grades should be equal to the number of grades I'm keeping. Just something to think about. Okay, I have that to do here. Let's do that to do. I need to figure out how many characters in this array are not this char to ignore. Okay, so let's okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to call that function each and every time. I'm going to put a little fake number in here just to hold it, to hold a place for it. And instead of returning 0, I'm going to return this, a text array size. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. That's doing nothing new from what it was doing before. It was returning 0 before. It's now returning 0 again. The difference is now I'm going to fix this up. Okay, I'll figure out this function later. Okay, let's figure out that function now. So what do I want to do? I'm going to use a for loop, and I'm going to use an unsigned int. Why? Because the array size is an unsigned integer. So my I here, I'm comparing an unsigned integer to an unsigned integer. They're only positives, they're only positives. If I could type, that would be awesome. I++, there you go. All right. I want to go check to see if that character is equal to my char to ignore. Otherwise, I increase the count. So I'm going to need some kind of counter. Count chars. Yeah. In my array at position I, if it's not equal to char to ignore, count chars plus, I gotta fix that spelling. Count chars equal to count chars plus 1. There we go. And just because I'm paranoid, one of those in there as well. So what's this going to do? This will return the number of characters to ignore in there. What I might want to do is I could do something like this. Oh, so this is not going to work out, but let's see what's going to happen with this. What would I expect? I would expect that if I've removed a certain number of characters and then called this count number to ignore function. So let's move that into a separate, let's make a new variable. Unsigned in as well. Okay. What I would expect is non-ignore count plus num to remove. What should that be equal to? I would assume, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that that's going to be equal to my array size. The number I've dropped plus the number I'm not dropping should be equal to my array size. Okay, and let's do the same thing for the line above, being aware that I'm intentionally doing it wrong, but we'll see why it's wrong. That moving it to the lines above is wrong, going to be wrong. But return non. It's the kind of thing I would do when I'm testing my code. Okay, I want to have. I'm going to put a different. Actually, that's still fine. You can see why in a second, but okay. Return Okay. This theoretically will blow up. It will not blow up right away. That's why we need to test our code. So let's try it with 2. That will not blow up. This should actually, hopefully, oh, I need to change this here. All right. This will not blow up at first. It will blow up soon. Oh, it did blow up all right away. Oh man, I wanted it to blow up right away. Let's try it. Let's figure out what the abort does. Okay, so the array size is 9. Number to remove is equal to 0. And the number of ignore count is oh, beautiful. I made all sorts of mistakes in here. What did I do? The number to remove, I was changing it. So what I started with is not what it is at the end. It goes down to 0 like it's supposed to. I'm going to need something else to keep in mind. So original num to keep the original number around for later, and then I can test on it. All right. That's not even what the problem I was going to. I had my own bug in there, which I didn't even see. Great. Because number to remove is decreasing. I can't rely on the original number being correct anymore. That's why I normally don't modify my member variables. But all right. Hey, that worked. I removed 2 of them, and I know that the original number to remove plus the number of non-ignored values is equal to the array. It's the number of characters I have in this thing. I'm going to change something, and we're going to see why we have tests and why we test things different ways. What about this case? I put this test 2 different places, here and here. Right, one here, one here. This is the escape route. When I don't find the character that I'm looking for, get the heck out up here. So if I only have, 4 A's, but I'm trying to remove 10 of them, when I've removed 4 A's, there's no more A's to remove. So the to remove index, the location of the next A available to me, it's gone. There's no A. And therefore I get out, which means this number starts off at 10, goes down to like 8 or 6 or something, and it's still not right. The array size, this is actually larger than the array size to begin with. I can't do this. So I'm going to get an error message, and I'm going to find out what my problem was and my logic was wrong. And it broke. And it broke right here where I was expecting it to break. Why? Because the original number to remove is 10. The number to ignore is value 5 because I removed 4. I started off with 9 characters. I removed 4 of them. There's no more A's in this thing. If I look at my array itself, there are no more A's in this thing. And so this is 5. This is 10 to remove. So 15 in total, which is clearly not equal to the size of the array. I can't do this test on this particular line of code. This is the kind of thing I'm trying to get you thinking about, like, where can your code go wrong? Do a little bit test, do a little bit test. This happens to match almost verbatim what we're doing in the assignment. But I've also shown you a for loop and a while loop, a whole bunch of conditionals, and how you can methodically break down each of these parts. But I want to see what other questions you guys have, because this is similar-ish to your assignment. Do you want to know anything about parameters? I mean, there's some people that are assuming, for example, let's see here. Notice the name of this variable here is message, but when I call this other function down here, it's a text. What? It's not the same name. Does everyone understand why that happens? There you go. Perfect. It's a common problem. Here's what's going to happen. Every time I make a function, every time I call a function, I will jump to this other line of code. It will make a brand new, it's a pointer, but a brand new thing pointing to where this memory is with a name. It gives it a name called a text. It happens to point to the exact same location as this other thing. They're both pointing to the same thing. This variable called array size, I will make a brand new variable called array size, and I'll say, what should its starting value be? Its starting value should be whatever the heck function called it. So in this case, I don't know where, there it is. Okay. I want to get the things where my name's changed. So remove characters to remove and characters to remove. This is my first parameter. This is my second parameter. This is my third parameter. So this array, the number 9, the number 10. When I jump down here, I'm making a brand new thing pointing an address to where this array is. They're pointing to the same location, but this thing is actually called something different. It just points to the exact same thing. Every time I make a new function, I get a brand new thing, brand new variable. Every time I go into that function, I make a brand new variable that points to this thing. If I call the function again, I make a brand new variable, points to that same thing again. Over and over again, I pass values, not variables. So if I pass a value into my function, I make a brand new variable called array size, and the value is 9. It's not a variable, it's a value. It takes that number 9 and says, so what should this value be to start? Oh, it's going to match whatever the thing that called it, the 9. Notice I didn't have a variable up here at all. I just have a number. I make a variable and set the variable to be equal to the value of 9. Same thing with this 10. I don't have a variable here. It's just a constant value. Number to remove is set to be equal to 10 to start. I make brand new variables. Every time I call a function, make brand new parameter variables, and I set their values. Then I use them. So it can be a completely different name than the thing calling it. It can be the same name as the thing calling it. But when I call, if I'm here and I call this up here, this is a new pointer at the new location, also named a text, just like there's a David2 and a David Sprague. We're both named David, different variables. I have a variable here in this function. I have a variable with the same name in this function. They're two completely different variables with the same name. Which one is which? I can only, when I'm in this function, I only see this variable. When I'm in this function, I only see this variable. So if the name was instead anum cows, you would still refer to, if I have anum cows here, it would be anum cows everywhere in this function. I make a brand new variable called anum cows, and anum cows, I'm only referring to anum cows in here. In fact, let's see, let's do I'm not going to call it num cows because it might screw people up. Cows. All right. Notice it says there's no variable called a text. A text only exists down here. When I jump up here, the only thing it sees, imagine like your classes, right? When you jump to your other class, you're not thinking about 1400 anymore. You're studying at your other class. When you have something to do for your other class, like homework 2, if you have multiple classes that all have homeworks named homework 2, which one is which? Well, it depends on what class you're talking about. If I have multiple, so I have multiple courses with it. I actually do this. Multiple assignments, multiple of my courses have their assignments named A1, A2, A3. I will, at the beginning of the term, some of you will write, how do you do A1? And my response is, which A1, I don't know what class you're in. It's the beginning of term. I have two courses with an A1 at the same time. It's contextually based. If I'm looking at 2400 students and they say, how do you do A1? I know exactly what they're talking about. If I ask you guys, how's your A1? If you say, I don't understand A1, I know which one you're talking about. But if a random student comes up to me and says, how do I do A1? I don't know which is which. It's contextually based. So, uh, so in this case, I don't want this. I need, if it's called a cows, it only exists in this one function. It's born here, dies down here. It gets given back to the system down at the end of the line. So my variables live and die within those curly braces. It's something we talked about when we looked at functions at first, but it requires repeat exposure. So every time I make a new function, I get brand new variables. Every one of the variables, like this variable here, gets given back to the system right here, that line at the bottom of the function. All my variables live and die within curly braces. If I make a variable inside of here, it lives and dies within these curly braces. We actually have an example of this. This is a variable called non-ignore count. This is a different variable called non-ignore count. While I am here, if I refer to non-ignore count, I mean this one here. Well, if I'm in this if statement, any references to non-ignore count mean the one in here. If I'm out here, any reference to non-ignore count means this one here, because this doesn't exist anymore. It gets given back to the system after that curly brace. It gets really weird, but it requires exposure to it. They live and die within these curly braces. That's actually why we have the curly braces. It tells you the scope. That's what the term is. Okay. If it's contextual to what I'm doing, just like you don't have you have, when you screw up on a course or screw up on an assignment, it's only relevant to that assignment. You can dust yourself off and go again for the next assignment. It doesn't keep hounding you for the rest of the term, right? If you screwed up assignment one, imagine if you screw up part of assignment one and then I held it against you for assignment 10. No, when you screw up assignment one, it only affects assignment one. When you get to assignment 10, hold other thing. That's what those curly braces are for. It's the variables that I make, everything I do in there only relates to stuff in there. So now I have a function that has a cows instead of what I had before. I also want to change it up here. Cows. Notice it had the same name, so the same data type, so it didn't even count. It didn't care which one you called it, what you called it. But I have a function. It has a new. I have something an array called a cows. What's a cows equal to? Is equal to whatever called the function. So when I call this function, I pass the address that a text has, the location where this memory is located. I pass it. I make a brand new variable called a cows and set the value of a cows to be equal to the value of a text. You're matching values. You don't pass variables. You're not sending pieces of memory across the system. You're just sending values for things. I'm hoping that makes sense. That is a regular sticking point for people, but I never know when people are going to, if and when people get confused by that. And for some of you, I think I've looked at some of your code over the last couple of weeks, and when like, yeah, oh no, that was I think someone in 2400. Then I was like, no, the variable only lives and dies within those curly braces. It it requires getting used to. Can I clarify some other aspect of that, or they're not global variables? That's actually the reason we hate global variables. They're terrible. Because if I have a global variable, who changed the value? I don't know. If I'm passing it around function to function, I know exactly who's modifying the value when they're modifying the value. I don't. It's not just weird and accidental. let's do this. That is a global variable. Let's see if I can really screw something up here. I'm going to change it in a second, but okay. First time through, I'm going to now. I'll screw it up nicely. What happened there? I'm just adding a line of code here just to show you how terrible this thing is. What's going to happen is I'm going to change the thing I'm looking for in some random function that I don't expect to change. I would never expect remove character to remove this kind of function or some other function that I have here. I would never in a million years expect this thing to change what I'm looking for midway. If I make a global variable, people can do stupid crap, and there's nothing I can say about it. It's leaving my car unlocked and wondering why people stole it. Right? Don't leave your car door unlocked. Same thing here, similar-ish. If I have a variable and it's global, anyone, anywhere, any function, anytime can modify that variable. And that's a bad, bad sign. We never use global variables unless we absolutely have to. And you don't have to in this course or in 2400. It's a bad habit to get into. It just bites you eventually. It will. So that's why we have constants, because I'm not allowed to change those afterwards. I can have a constant all I want. They can be global. Everyone sees what it looks like, but no one can change it. It's like giving you guys view access to, I do this from a lot of my assignments. I'll give view access to the code that I write. I don't let other students edit the code, because what's going to happen? They're going to edit the code and screw up other students. Okay? I give them view access. Anyone can see it. I don't care. Look at the code. That's fine. But I'm the only one that changes it. So if I do this, I'm going to get some weird, I don't even know it's going to give me an assertion error here. But so we can even get rid of this check here, but it's going to be weird. I'm going to get rid of the A and then the B, and then I'm going to stop. That's my guess. Got rid of an A, I got a B. Other A's are around because I've modified the thing I'm looking for midway. It's moving the goalposts on you. It's no bad, right? That's why we don't allow. And now if I go up here, if I wanted to know how to stop this sort of thing, let's make it a constant again. And error. Why? Because I can't change a constant. It's a constant. I'm not allowed to. Again. All right. Other things that are confusing you or don't know why. How do you find your semicolons or oh, this is a common one. Let me think of how to do this. People will do, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but people will do things like this. What is that actually doing? Anyone want to hazard a guess what that's actually doing now? It is a character array, right? So have it up here. Why not have it right down here? What is this doing now? I'll wait for this one. Hopefully this naming convention and scope makes some sense. Still didn't write anything. A lot of people do this, by the way, so it's perfectly normal. What does that do? Does that I think there's only 3 of you right now, so I can pick on all 3 of you. Yeah, there's only 4 of us in total. Everyone else bailed. They're all limping out. So you can ask direct questions, by the way. That's fine. I'm just trying to see if I can clarify things if you don't know exactly what's confusing you. So what does this int j do? I, okay. Is it equal to something though? This is where I thought people might be held up on things. What does int j do? It what did we do before? What's this thing doing? Letters, characters are numbers. You need to store them in a computer somewhere. They have to be stored in binary. So essentially you get they all look the same. To the computer, they all look the same. When I did this, what does it do? It says, give me a chunk, give me some memory space where I can store a number, an unsigned integer. So give me 32 bits of data. And I'm going to give it a label. I can call it whatever I want. I could call it Susan, doesn't matter. Give me a chunk of memory that I'm going to put numbers inside of, a number inside of, 32 bits of memory to put numbers inside of. That's what that thing says. Give me, and I'm going to pretend that 32 bits will only store positive integers, positive natural numbers like 0, 1, 17, not -1, but numbers. What does this thing do? It makes an integer, 32 bits, that I can store a value, and it gives me the labels at J. I'm labeled David. I am a human that taking up a certain amount of space, and I have a label, David. But every time I put the word int in there, it says, give me a chunk of memory that will store an integer, and I'm going to give it a label. This makes a chunk of memory, 32 bits, and I've labeled it J. What's the value for J? Don't know. I didn't give it a value. It's just I made a variable. Can I? I'm hoping to be able to clarify this one little thing though, because yeah, I think there's not a lot of back and forth. So thank you, Kaylee, for actually answering, by the way, because I'm about to stop if people don't respond. Uh, if I'm making a variable, every time I put the word int in there, right, that makes a variable. That's an important thing. And if you're lost on that, go back and review the very first couple weeks. That's in there. That shouldn't be that surprising. It's the surprising part is right here. That's going to make a brand new variable named a text, which is not what we want. That's why it's a problem. I already have something called a text. I just want to say use a text. If I put the word char star, if I put int, if I put any of these values in front of it, it says make a brand new variable and put something in it. So this is saying make me a brand new variable, which is a character pointer, or a location of for it to put text. I don't want that because it's I already have one. I want that. You should never be seeing like char star in here or unsigned int in here. unless it's casting is with the parentheses around it. That's saying, oh, no, 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 treat it as this kind of thing. But if I just put int in front of this thing, it makes a brand new variable for me. I don't want that. No one wants to see that. You just want to say, use this variable. Here it is. That's the name of it. I don't need to say human Susan. It's just Susan. Okay. That's a critical thing because if you're putting all these char stars in there as well, and then you go to compile your code, you're just going to get a whole crap ton of errors and not know what the heck is going on. And people, they randomly guess and they go, I guess I don't know what this is, so I'm going to put an int in here. And then weird stuff will happen and it's really hard to track it down. That's why you do a little chunk of code at a time. And you will spend hours and hours staring at code if you don't do little bits at a time and make sure you know why the format look. It all makes sense once you finally get it in your head, but it takes some time. Can I unpack anything else for anyone? Otherwise, I'm going to let you go because I'm getting a little dizzy from hunger. But I want to make sure that people are feeling comfortable. I mean, the algorithm itself should not be that crazy. It's just if you don't know how the code is going to work, you could be staring at it for a while. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and hope let me know if there's anything that else that comes up along the way. Okay. All right. And, all right. Thanks.